All right, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. Thank you for rating and reviewing us. Let's cut to the chase. Thank you for pre-ordering my book, which this will be the last time that I think we do. This will be the last podcast for a while because, Mike, as you know, my book's about to come out.
Yeah, what's the name of your book, Matt? Tell us about it.
Well, it's funny. Let me just hang on one second.
All right. Yeah, let's see it here. I've ordered my copy.
It's called Filthy Rich Politicians.
Oh,
I
I
don't know if
like
you
it.
can, with the
Yeah,
glare,
yeah,
but
there we go.
anyway, there it is. Um, so we're going to cover a lot of ground because I don't know when I'll do another podcast. And please, if you're listening and you have not ordered it yet, what are you waiting on?
Right.
Please do.
I mean, Putin could go mad tomorrow, launch a nuclear attack, and the thing will be incinerated before you can read it. Don't wait. No hesitation.
Amen.
To the bold goes the victory.
Shameless self-promotion. I should introduce our guest, although he is a man who needs no introduction anywhere in the civilized world, of course. He's a regular guest on this show, infuriated GOP strategist, co-host of Hacks on Tap, and NBC News analyst Mike Murphy. Welcome back to the news.
Hello. Great to be here, Matt. Thank you for having me.
Great to talk with you. I've been slacking, Mike, because of the book stuff. So if it's cool with you, I'm gonna cover like the last week or two of stuff. And if there's anything you don't know or don't remember, we'll just keep on going.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
I'm going to start with the Biden, and we're going to be bipartisan here. I'm going to hit both sides, but I'm going to start on Joe Biden. The Joe Biden granddaughter thing, right? So like Hunter had an out of wedlock daughter, and Joe Biden refuses to acknowledge her. He keeps saying he has like 5 grandchildren. It's really 6 or something like that. Like, A, what's up with that? And then B, have you had a situation like this as a political strategist where you've had a candidate that you had to tell, like, you can't do this, you can't not reference this?
Well, I'm glad you said as a political strategist, because I didn't want to have to acknowledge Norbert, one of my many illegitimate grandchildren. No. So I don't have any special insight into this. I can speculate. I'll say politically, and then I'll try to remember if I've ever had any candidates where I said, we got to acknowledge the grandkid out of wedlock. Come on, I can't recall. I've had a lot of things come up, but not that one. But to your larger point, I think first of all, because we're in the internet era and the cable TV news era, every single bit of trivia in a presidential campaign gets obsessively looked at for a day or two, and then it gets thrown out the window until maybe it'll come back with a new angle. It's the nature of cable TV that everything's breaking news because more clicks, more downloads, stickier audience, more money. It's a business. So every day has to be the most important day in the campaign. So stuff like that, can you imagine what Nixon burgers would have been like in the cable era? It would have gone on for a month. So that said, in our current era, because it's so free to put out a lot of stuff, and because we're so polarized that each side is looking for more evidence the other side is evil to kind of wave around, this will get known, at least among the people who pay attention, like sports to politics, on each side. And it will undercut the regular Joe image a little bit. He's a little bumbling, maybe he's a little old, but his heart's in the right place. So it is a discordant note for the perception of people who like Biden have about Biden. That's a problem. And we also are getting a lot of these in the insider world, cranky old Biden stories. He yelled at a staffer the other day. He made Amy Klobuchar cry, and that's impossible.
That's a tough person.
By the way, I made that up. There might be a hockey enforcer working out of Canada who could do it. I'm not sure. I'd bet on Amy. But the point being, the nasty Biden thing is kind of in vogue now, at least among people who already dislike him. As far as the why and the how, and this is wild, stupid speculation, but that won't stop me. The only thing I can think of is in the old days, he might have gotten old days advice, which is, no, you can't acknowledge him. Then next thing you know, you're for wedlock. What will the Cardinals say? And he might be stuck to what was the, quote unquote, smart advice of 1989. My guess is they will reconcile all this. I think also there are political people saying, don't talk anything about Hunter Biden. You just add fuel to the Republican fire about it. But in the internet era, everything's on fire all the time anyway. The fuel is
Yeah.
infinite. So the better thing to do is address it, pivot, and move on along to the new thing, which will be, one of the 100 of illegitimate children. I'll bet there are somewhat related to Republican members of Congress and Democratic as well. Though the point is, this is trivia, but it's a little problem for them right now because it doesn't fit the perception people have of what kind of person Joe Biden is. And I will put in a plug for Arnold Schwarzenegger, my old client, who had a son in an affair, which we all heard about. And Arnold is very involved in that kid's life. I mean, he has brought him in totally and treats him like a son. So, there's plenty of room for condemnation about his original behavior, but Arnold has owned up to it. And if you want to hear more, you should check out the new Netflix documentary, Arnold, which is really a lot of fun. It's a 3-part thing. And I know Arnold very well. I work for him. I spent a zillion hours with him. And if you want to know what he's really like in real life, watch that documentary. It gives you a very good idea of a very interesting person.
That is cool. Since you brought up Netflix and stuff, I'll throw this out with zero game prep here.
Right.
But I just got done season 2 of Ted Lasso, and I'm in the middle of season 2 of The Bear. And
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen either, Mike, but I do
I've seen both.
I recommend them. And by the way, no spoilers here, but I just saw the episode. I think it's episode 7 of season 2 of The Bear, which is incredibly inspiring. It's where
Yeah.
Cousin
The
works.
Bear is magnificent. Fantastic cast. Directed with a very sure hand. One of my favorite character actors, Oliver Platt, is in it and is absolutely magnificent. And
Really
it is a
good.
love letter to Chicago, which is great.
I want to ask you, let's go to the other side of the political aisle. And this is old news now, but we haven't talked, and I've been focused solely on book promotion. Much.
I know people who've done it. There's a Murphy book that may be coming. I totally get how much damn work it is. I thought I could find an alcoholic ghostwriter and just dictate for a week at Caesar's Palace and have a book. No, you actually have to write the damn thing. So
for me, writing it
wasn't doing it.
Writing it was not. I don't want to say it wasn't the hard part, but writing it was. It's this part. It's the
promo.
Yeah, that's tough on me. But anyway.
You'll be at a bookstore in Oswego, Michigan, signing copies and arguing with people in line about Trump. It's going to be a fantastic 90 days.
Oh, man. I want to ask you about DeSantis. So there was a video, I guess it feels like a million years ago. It was probably a week ago. But I think it was the Ron DeSantis Super PAC put out this video that was like very weird, very based. Yes. As the kids say.
They're using it as an opening trailer at the Kit Kat Theater in West Hollywood right now, because it was the weirdest.
He's trying to get to the right of Donald Trump and basically accuse Trump of being too woke on trans issues and stuff.
And then there's all this gay subtext. I'm no expert on any of this stuff. I don't want to offend anybody and I don't want to decode it. But boy, the second video will be DeSantis's 5 favorite gladiator movies.
It's like homoerotic.
Yeah, it was I understand the strategy he's trying. And this is old in the Republican Party. When Trump first ran, there was a lot of talk about, wait a minute, in his heart, this guy is a Democrat donor, gun control supporter, New York City libertine. And now he's trying to be the darling of Republican social conservatives. We, all the opponents, particularly on the social conservative right, are going to blow the whistle on him. And none of it worked because Trump had all the right enemies and he was seen as blowing up Washington and all that stuff looked small and trivial. So they are taking out that playbook again, which you can ask President Cruz how much it worked last time. And the execution, whether or not you agree with the strategy, was really, really clumsy.
So today, I don't know if you've seen any of this, but just today, my old boss, Tucker Carlson, was moderating. It wasn't a debate, but it was like a series of interviews with candidates. There's a clip of him with Mike Pence where Mike Pence seemed to kind of misspeak. And that's going to be exploited, I'm sure, in videos.
Yeah.
Tim Scott was someone. There are people that Tucker had been critical of, who he is now in a position of basically moderating a conversation with. And I'm wondering what you thought of that, and if you were a candidate, like if you were Nikki Haley or Tim Scott or Mike Pence, would you have gone? Would you have sent your candidate in to talk to him?
Well, you're right. Well, first, I'm glad to see Tucker is not behind the counter at Quiznos, which is what I thought he was doing now after the Fox legal onslaught. What is he on shortwave now? But anyway, to the point of the forum, it is a tough call because if you're in a Republican primary and you're not Donald Trump, you all have a different version of the same essential strategy, which is we got to kneecap him in Iowa and then we got to beat him in New Hampshire and he'll be dead, which is true. And that is what I think will happen. I can't tell you.
You think that's the right strategy, and you think that will happen?
Yeah, I've been saying for 2 years Trump's not going to be the nominee. And I think I think he's going to lose the Iowa caucus. I think he might be third in Iowa. And this is where a lot of people laugh and say you're out of your mind. But I've been saying it for 2 years is what I believe. And I've worked a lot of Iowa caucuses. And then if he loses New Hampshire, it's totally over. So the question is, if you're Scott or DeSantis or Nikki or Burgum or anybody, how do you do that? And the easiest way to win the Iowa caucus in the old days, because there's a question about the new days, but in the old days was to be the overwhelming candidate of Iowa social conservatives who make up a large portion of the caucus vote. Now, the problem is that can lead to being President Santorum, President Huckabee. It comes with a hangover because New Hampshire, the next state, is very secular, and independents often vote in large numbers in the New Hampshire primary. When John McCain, who I worked for in 2000, when we beat Bush there, President George W. Bush, we beat Bush among Republicans, but fairly narrowly. We clobbered him among independents, which is why we had such a big win on election night. Now, keep in mind, next year when they have the New Hampshire primary, it'll only be on the Republican side, but that doesn't mean independents cannot vote. Normally, some of them peel off over to the Democratic primary to vote for the Tsongas or whoever the thoughtful, less progressive left candidate is. This time they got nothing to do. Same thing in Iowa. If you're an Iowa independent or even a Democrat, you can walk to a Republican on caucus night. You can vote. There are 162,000 Democratic voters and independents who lean Democrat who voted in Iowa last time. What do they got to do this time? The Dems have canceled their count. So anyway, the chemistry might be different. But your easy way to get ahead in Iowa is to be that candidate. The problem is it makes New Hampshire harder. So, there's a cost, a big cost to it. So the question is, how do you thread the needle? The best case study is George W. Bush in the Iowa caucus in 2000, where he was social conservative acceptable. He had his own testimony. He was comfortable with some of the issues, but he ran on a much larger scope. He did social conservative plus. And I think the Scott people and the increasingly desperate looking DeSantis people are going to feel the pull of let's go for the sugar calories here and try to win on the social right. But then you give Trump a window or others something to happen in New Hampshire. And of course, if Trump loses Iowa and loses New Hampshire to two different people, then it's a little better for Trump to try a comeback. You need one dragon slayer to win both. So what would I tell my candidate to do? I'd say, look, inside the Republican primary electorate, Tucker has a following. So being with them, you pay no short-term penalty. However, your larger brand will be damaged a bit. Now, I think he is insignificant enough now and becoming more insignificant that he's not that big a factor. So I would probably take the risk of blowing him off, but I would think about it. And I can see a strategy where you do it and the harm is not that big. What I would want a candidate to do is be the beyond Trump candidate who's going to be New Hampshire accessible, but is social conservative acceptable enough to put a coalition together where you run top two with the social conservatives and your top two with Trump or maybe somebody else with the regulars, and then you win the caucus. Tricky to do. Romney just about did it in Iowa in 2008. So I think I think there is a strategy there, but I'd be careful of Tucker. Tucker is not helpful, and he is an anchor going down. For all he says about being on shortwave now, and I kid, I know it's Twitter, he doesn't have the megaphone he used to. That is a fact. And Fox can always create a new Tucker. That's what Keith Olbermann learned when they called Rachel Maddow up from the minors, and bing, she's a lot bigger than he is.
Yep. I totally agree with you there. Fox is the show. Fox is the star, and they can move pieces around. So who do you like? If you don't think it's going to be Trump, is it Christie? Is it Tim Scott? Is it Ron DeSantis? Is it someone else?
My problem is I hate everybody, but Christie, I'm enjoying the Christie show. It's not going to get him nominated, but he could be catalytic for somebody else. And he's showing the field you can be Trump critical and you don't burst into flames. So I'm thoroughly enjoying Christie. I gave him the $10 or whatever I gave him, $100 to help get him on the debate stage, because I think the net effect of Christie will be good in the primary, I think, mission for me, which is Trump not be the nominee. Of the others, I like Scott. Scott is an opportunity conservative. Now, he's pandering to Trump a little too much, and I understand why, and that's the groupthink of the primary. And I don't want anybody to run the Republican primary just to make me happy, because that purist anti-Trump thing is not enough of a strategy to win. So I like Scott. I think he has a real shot to win Iowa. I want him to win it in a way where he's New Hampshire positive, but I would tell people to keep an eye on him. I had a brief bout of equal enthusiasm for Doug Burgum, the governor of North Dakota. And my theory there was I liked his launch video. And I said, all right, this guy has figured it out. He is a governor, not a senator. He's not part of the Washington food fight. That is a good thing when running for president. 2, he's from the West. He's interesting, and he's talking about interesting, regular conservative things, the economy, issues people actually care about. And he's a zillionaire, which means he doesn't have to worry about donors calling up panicking that the new Fox poll shows him at 3, not 7, all the early crap. See, a lot of campaigns hit the rocks because they're really, for the first 8 months of the campaign, chasing donors. And the finance staff says, well, we're not reading about you in the papers. Get a pogo stick, do something. So, and we got to go up on TV to cook the local polling so we can raise more money. And they wind up broke at the end of the year. They never get the donors, blah, blah, blah. They're really in a straitjacket. And I thought Burgum is a guy who's not in a straitjacket. He can actually go do whatever the hell he wants on his own nickel, go spend $15 million and see if he breaks through in Iowa. He's also a farm state governor, and that can be helpful in Iowa. You know how to talk the language of Iowa, particularly outside the Des Moines, metroplex. So then he got in, and the problem was they had no idea what to do. He went on Face the Nation. They asked him a complicated question. He, just went into his stump about growing up on a farm. It was painful to watch, and he is a smart, capable guy, but because he's used to being governor of North Dakota, where he's talking to 2 reporters at the State House. That's his idea of a press corps. Kind of, Tim Scott has a little of this too. He hasn't really dealt with fastball press yet, which is the first thing you got to learn running for president. And Burgum's main message is I'd be a good energy secretary, apparently. So I've been extremely disappointed because I saw a window for him to get very interesting very quickly. And, all these campaigns, even Obama, when he ran in 2008, they stumbled at the beginning. So there's time to reset, but we're running out of time. And Burgum has done very little with the opportunity he had. And so it pains me to say it because I had high hopes for him. But it's a double-A baseball effort right now, and he's trying to play in the majors. So Scott and Burgum are kind of my 2 favorite. I really hoped to see if there was a way to get Brian Kemp to run from Georgia. Again, not my favorite, but he's a Trump slayer. He knows how to handle and not be intimidated by Trump. And the narrative that he would have gotten when he jumps in, the guy who knows how to handle Trump is showing up to save the party, would have been very interesting in the primary. And I think he would have raised a lot of money quick and been a contender, but didn't want to run.
Do you agree that Ron DeSantis just doesn't have it? That there was a lot of hype, and then he gets in, and he just doesn't have the charisma. He doesn't have the likability. Whatever it is, he doesn't have it.
Well, he has terrible candidate skills, but the national media has written him off immediately, and I have not. He has money He's adroit at culture war stuff. He's younger than Trump. I can see, and on the ground in Iowa, he's doing a lot better than he is around the salons of Manhattan. So he's not my cup of tea. I take him over Trump because I'll take a cynic over a madman. But I don't totally write him off the way the quote smart money does in D.C. I generally bet against the D.C. smart money. They're still wondering where President Glenn is. But yeah, his candidate skills are limited. Now, his wife, Casey, is a natural. If there was a one fix for that campaign, it would be switch jobs. But eventually being a bad candidate catches up with you. You can see it where it's hurting him most now is not the voter game, the finance game, because the narrative has gone from muscular Florida dynamo to bumbling, incompetent campaign, doing homoerotic videos and stumbling around. And now you're reading process stories that no voter cares about, but the donor class does, of money going to Scott. And Scott had a good quarter. Scott's got money. Scott's on TV in Iowa. There's super PAC polls showing him creeping into the low double digits now in Iowa. I think the next Des Moines Register poll will shuffle the deck a little bit, and that'll be good for Scott. It'll give him some more attention. Now, they've got to be ready for the big microphone, though. He's got a little of the Burgum problem, but not as bad. He's got more natural skills. So the other problem is we're all in an industry where we have to take any day in July and think it matters. These campaigns are logarithmic. Right now in Iowa, if we had a time machine and we went back to 2016, at the beginning of June, so about a month ago or a little more than that, the leader in the Iowa caucus by the most reputable media poll in Iowa was Scott Walker, followed by runner-up Rand Paul, followed by President Ben Carson. They were the top three. So, the punditocracy has to devour every bit of trivia to predict who's going to win because everybody wants to be the amazing Kreskin. I just think the vote to move beyond Trump is bigger than the vote to keep him. And I think that dynamic will increase to Trump's detriment. And this primary in Iowa, caucus season, and New Hampshire will be like many of the past ones where there'll be a late surge for somebody. And I don't know who that somebody is. I can make an argument for DeSantis, for Scott, for Burgum. I can't make it for Christie. I wish I could make it for Asa Hutchison. I can kind of slightly make it for Pence, but it doesn't matter. We got to let the cake cook, and then talk to me in November or December in Iowa because somebody will be moving.
It's a date. We'll do it. I saw you tweeting something about a defense bill. Again, I'm out of the loop. I don't know what's happening. What's going on?
Well, Congress is so dysfunctional now, particularly the House, that, and it's an old trick, when you have a minority faction, like let's say you and I start up the metric system caucus, and we get 50 members to join, and our big thing is the metric system is a communist plot to pollute the minds of the young. So we spend all our time trying to ban the word kilometer. And we know we're never going to pass our bill. We don't have any votes. But if we can glom it as an amendment to a bill that has to pass and threaten to hold all our votes, we can maybe shove through a crazy idea because the big bill has to pass. Well, defense approach, I don't know about you. I think we ought to pay our soldiers. And, I think the military ought to buy what they need. And particularly in the era we're in right now, you can argue about how they spend it and all that. But what's happened is the Freedom Caucus has put away the flat world map for a while. And they're getting into defense appropriations with a social conservative agenda. Now, normally these defense bills pass in a pretty bipartisan way, but they're turning this thing into a big deal that, like right now, if you're enlisted and you go to your military health care, I think if you're an officer too, but let's do you're an enlisted member of the services and you're female and you want counseling on reproductive health. It's not the lie they tell you is we want the military to pay for abortions. No, but you can't talk to a doctor, and you can get your sergeant can give you a pass to go to the state next door if they don't allow reproductive health services where you're stationed. Let's say I'm from New York. I'm stationed in Alabama, and there's a law there that prevents, should I choose, I can go to my commanding officer and say, I need medical leave, and you can go and you get honest advice from a physician. That's the way it ought to be. We have a citizen army here, not an ideological army. Our soldiers or our officers don't swear an oath to the president. They swear to the Constitution because we're not Prussia. So these guys have decided that they're going to strip all that and get the military into this business of making those choices. And they're trying to screw up the bill. And they've succeeded. They've driven all the Democratic votes away. So it's a big mess. Kevin, of course, who other than the budget deal has an ability to slide under a closed door when need be, is busy sliding under a closed door. So it's amateur stuff. It's embarrassing. It's not how they're having a hell of a laugh over in Beijing over this right now. The big superpower can't even fund its military because they've got some kooks in their silly democracy who are able to hijack everything. So yeah, it's the sign of American decline that we decided to take the chimp house at the zoo and make it the House of Representatives. And it's driven by a minority of kooks, the Freedom Caucus and others who, and I'm a conservative, by the way. I get the arguments, but I call it the monkey wrench caucus. Let's see what we can screw up today. Let's default on a debt ceiling and ruin the U.S. dollar as the as the world currency standard, which gives us a lot of latitude, by the way. All this stuff. It's like they have a rule when your IQ hits 70, you're not allowed to be in the Republican caucus anymore.
So I know you're out in Hollyweird on the left coast.
Yeah, that's me.
And I was wondering,
I'm right here on the border to Beverly Hills and only blocks from the picket line at Fox.
That's what I wanted to ask you about. What's up? What is the deal with the writer's strike, like globally? What's it about? And then what's happening lately?
Well, tools down. I am a member of the Writers Guild West, have been for a long time. So I'm on strike right now. So that's why you don't hear my phone ringing with Spielberg demanding a new script. This time the dinosaurs go to Mars. So what's happening, and I'm also a SAG-AFTRA member, which shocks a lot of people, that I'm in the Actors Guild because I have a face made for radio. But so what's going on is with the writers, I opposed the last strike. I'm wary of writer strikes because often when we go on strike, we teach the studio how to make stuff without writers. And, at the top of the studios, like any corporation, are capital allocators who are going to, they'll put dancing squirrels on TV if it costs less to make than a scripted show. That's just who they are. So this time I'm for the strike, and there are a lot of issues in the strike. The biggest issue is a lot of the production money in Hollywood has gone to streaming shows. And the difference between working on a network show and a streaming show is streaming shows almost always have fewer episodes, 8 or 10, as opposed to as many as 21 or 23 on like a network hour. And if you're a writer, you're paid by the show. You're paid a bunch of different things depending on how high ranking you are in the hierarchy of the show. Did you create it? Are you running it? Are you a co-executive producer level or just a starter puppy writer? But fundamentally, you get paid less for working on fewer episodes. So the paychecks go down. The other problem is if you wrote a Cheers episode way back when, you've been paid several times for it because reruns, you get a residual payment. And once you've had a career and your work is still in syndication, they're increasingly small payments, but you do profit from that over time because it's partially your IP. In the streaming world, there are no residuals. You get your fee for the 8 episodes or for the, whatever the deal is. And unless you're a creator of the show, and even so, you're done. That's it. So you're working less and earning less. The average middle-class writer in Hollywood, and people roll their eyes because they see somebody driving around in a Rolls-Royce convertible. No, the average working-class writer in Hollywood has seen in real dollars about a 20+% pay cut. And even though there's more work, it's at much less money. So the kids who are starting out as baby writers are starving. It's really hard to make much of a living now unless you've got rich parents who put you up for 5 years and say, good luck.
It's the same thing with politicians and media people now, too.
Yeah,
who can afford? I was literally just having an interview today where I was talking about, like, at the Daily Caller, and I work with a lot of great young people, but most of them were loaded because who
Right.
else could afford to move to Washington, D.C. and work for like no money
Right. And
other
you got to
in
adopt the
journalism?
Tucker Carlson dress code. So you got to go down to Brooks Brothers.
Yeah,
Those bow ties aren't free.
you got to have the Vineyard Vine red
Right. Right.
pants.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
No,
gotta
no, exactly.
there's a
Man,
whole,
Nantucket red is more expensive than regular
that's
red. And this is where I tilt the camera because, of course, I'm wearing Nantucket red shorts right now. Um,
I would show you mine, but bad form. But
yeah.
yeah,
No,
pretty
no,
much
I
same
trust you.
category.
So the other issue is a lot of fear in the membership about artificial intelligence, because we're getting to the point where artificial intelligence can write a soap opera episode, and writers fear it'll write everything. I think that's kind of a leap, but there is a concern. And over on the Actors Union, who just went on strike, let's say you're a day player, which means you're in the background. We're doing the hospital show, and in the background are nurses, and there's a cop walking. Let's say you're the cop. So you show up, you're going to work the day, you're going to get the box lunch, you're going to get whatever the minimum is, $400. I'm making that up. I don't know the current day player minimum. And your job's stand around for 12 hours and be in the background walking back and forth. If you don't say anything, you're not a principal player, but your atmosphere. Well, what AI can do is you work one day for your $400, it'll scan you, and then they put you in digitally forever. So your likeness could be in other shows and you never get paid.
Wow.
So yeah, so these are the issues that have people really worked out. Finally, in the writers' world, there's a bit of a schism between the writers who've been at it longer and more advanced in their careers and the young puppy writers. The puppy writers would like, and the guild would like, minimum staffing numbers. In other words, you got a show, you got to have 6 writers. Right now, some of the showrunners, who are the writers who create and run the shows, say, I don't need 6 writers. I only want 3. I'll write them all. And that staffing minimum thing is a little more controversial inside the guild. The public line is, yeah, we want them. Other people are like, look, we can't guarantee these kids a job. So there's tension there. They also have things called mini rooms, which are controversial. You can be a writer now on a TV show and never be on the set. And for a young writer, rotating on to be the set guy when the actor says, I just don't think Bozo the Clown would say, yippee kids. He'd say, let's all get involved together, kid. Well, no. And you got to come up with a
This
line
is
to make
Dustin
the
Hoffman from Tootsie, remember?
Totally.
Yeah, he was like, I played the grape in a
Yeah.
Fruit of the Looms commercial.
Yeah.
The grape would not do that.
Don't underestimate how some actors they will have an opinion about the dialogue. Often that means a complicated sentence they think they can't say right. Sometimes they have a great idea. I'll tell a story. I made a pilot for CBS last year about the House of Representatives called Ways and Means. And the great actor Arliss Howard, who played the Speaker of the House, and it was fantastic. We had a wonderful cast. They were all great. Patrick Dempsey was our big star, but David Strathairn, I mean, it was a magnificent cast, especially for network TV. But he had lived a line. He was playing a Texas speaker, real tough Paul type, and he had a big scene with Patrick. And at the end of it, we kind of linger on him after he'd given a very tough order to Patrick. And he's just standing there. And he just adds his on, Miss Evelyn, I'd like a sandwich, please. It just came out of nowhere. And it was so authentic I wanted to keep it in the cut. Miss Evelyn, there was no Miss Evelyn, but he figured a guy like that would have a Miss Evelyn, and he was right. And he did that a couple of times. So, but having a writer on set during production really helps. And if under some of these limits, the young writers never get that experience, they never learn anything. Anyway, so there's a window now to solve
I think
this.
this is very fascinating. And, let's go back to The Bear that I'm watching.
Yeah, Bear's great.
I mean, there was that one episode, I think it was episode 6, was super depressing. It's like the flashback episode where there's an alcoholic mom. And then the next episode is so inspirational.
Yeah.
Whatever the case, the writing is so good and it's so smart.
Right.
And I mean, sign me up. Like,
a secret to a show like that: one, really talented people, and 2, a long leash, because it started as a relatively low budget show. Nobody cared enough to screw with it. I had written a script a long time ago for HBO called Hacks, about political consultants. The name would later come back, and a great series about an aging comedian they're doing now. But I went to see a writer-producer I really respect. And the network had asked him to meet with me because they were thinking of making it HBO. We were close. Eventually, they went with Veep instead. We came in second to Veep, and I can't criticize Veep's a great show. But anyway, he was talking about the process and all that. I said, and about how the more they care about it, the more they might ruin the show.
Yeah. Ironic.
Because the executives have a lot at stake when you go spend a lot of money and their bosses are yelling at them. So you get a lot of help, maybe no room to make mistakes.
Yeah.
I guarantee you, if the Bear had gone through heavy notes, one, the creative team that knew they had a great show probably killed themselves, and two, it wouldn't be the Bear. But anyway, I said, how does anything good get made on TV? And this famous writer, you'd know the name, said, mostly by mistake. Seinfeld was dying in a drawer. Hill Street Blues was controversial. I mean, he went through a bunch of famous shows. So the great hope for TV is the longer leash, lower budget, character-driven shows with a real creative voice. If you look, the creator of that show, and I'm embarrassed I can't spit the name out perfectly, is all over everything. One captain, one vision, with a lot of very talented actors, and the cinematography on it is great too. That flying camera in the conversation stuff is a lot harder to execute than it looks.
And the
because the cameraman has to know all the dialogue like a play and be there first. The operator does. So it's anyway.
It's so good.
I highly recommend it. Have you finished the second season?
No. So
wait till the last episode. There's a great Oliver Platt beat, which they set up in the one you just saw.
Can't wait. But this is like a philosophical thing that you're talking about, which is almost like I mean, I know "let a thousand flowers bloom" isn't the best saying, right? Because wasn't that Chairman Mao?
Chairman Mao loved TV, so it's all right.
But there's a conservative thing there, which is like an invisible hand. Like, we're not going to try to top-down micromanage things. We're going to greenlight a bunch of projects, and some of them will flourish.
Experiment. Yeah. It's just when the stakes get high, when the money stakes get high, and a lot of people are essentially accountants saying, you better not blow 20 million on this, you're going to get a lot of help. When it's like 2 million, oh, what the hell? Nobody's going to watch it. Just don't spend any money, which is how Hollywood used to work. There'd be some mogul who made their money in the New York City wholesale scrap metal business, Warner Brothers or whatever. They'd say, kid, I don't get it. You can spend 1 million and not a nickel more. And then, if you're reading on the great histories up through the 70s, there was more room for that kind of thing. And there's some room for it now, but it's hard. On the other hand, if you're a writer, I have a buddy of mine who's been on a lot of shows, and he's in his 50s now, which in Hollywood years is 108. And he said, I just want to land to be the number 4 guy on Blue Bloods, because, that is, it's a 21, 23, whatever they are at now, episode gig, pays well. I got 3 years left, make some money, boom. So creatively, the network thing can be more of a grind. But financially, for a working class writer, it's a great gig. If it lasts, who knows what we'll be doing in 5 or 10 years.
I mean, I have a similar philosophy personally, which is like, I want to get paid as much as possible in a way, but you don't want to be the highest compensated person at your office because
no, then you can't unplug your phone. Yeah.
With a budget cut, right? You're the first to go.
And it's your fault when other people screwed up. I learned that in consulting early. I will take responsibility, but I better have all the goddamn authority. Because the worst thing is you're responsible yet not in charge.
So I like to fly below the radar as much as possible.
Well, by booking guests like me, you guarantee that.
Before I let you go, I wanted to ask you, because you wrote a very interesting Substack newsletter, ostensibly about electric cars, but I think it turned into an even more fun conversation. But why don't you, first of all, how could people find it? And then tell us about it.
Well, I love Matt Labash, a friend of mine, love his writing.
Great writer.
Yeah. He did a profile on me for Weekly Standard, which was funny and I didn't hate, which, anyway, so I've known him a long time. He's great. So he's on it and I religiously read his stuff. And I've been aware, I have an account, and I thought, well, Christ, it's not like I'm not bloviating on Hacks on Tap podcast or on TV or, tweeting like an idiot. I'm not on Thread yet. I'm waiting for Needle, which will be the third one, but Anyway, so I thought, well, let me do something off the play with Substack a little. So I'm there, Mike Murphy. I don't have a name for it or anything, but there are about 20 Mike Murphys there, but you'll find me. And I just
Yeah.
been through this
And by
little.
the way, there's another prominent Mike Murphy who's a Republican consultant in Indiana, I think.
Oh God, I
But
don't know about him. But
so like,
hire
but
him.
let me tell you something. Try being Matt Lewis sometime
Yeah,
and see how that is.
yeah. No, I'm sure people knocking your door at 3 a.m. Where's Huey? Um,
Yes.
I had a house in LA in the Laurel Canyon, and the prior owner was Lowell Cream of 10cc and a lot of other stuff. And every once in a while, I get a drunken fan at night, like, Lowell here? No, not for 10 years. Um, so, real quickly, I'm a Detroit motorhead, and I love car tech, and I follow it. And I've been sneezing at electric cars for a long time. They run on hubris. But the frustrated automotive engineer in me admires a lot of it. So I've been driving around looking at $5 or $6 gas in California, and I'm not that big on the House of Sod. So one thing led to the other, and I traded in my GTS Porsche, which I loved, even though I'm getting of the age where really my Porsche, can't you just buy some Rogaine? And for an electric car, BMW. I love the Tesla engineering, a lot of it. Don't love Elon. Though I don't know, in the Zuckerberg cage match, it's hard for me to pick a side on that one. But I've
It's
worked
like
for
the
Facebook a lot,
Iran-Iraq
so I'll
war,
stick. Yeah. I'll probably stick with Mark. But anyway, but I didn't want to write a preachy thing about electric cars, but it was such a conversion for me. What I wanted to write about was the unexpected joy I got from the damn thing. One, the elegance of the engineering, two, whizzing past gas stations, but mostly being me, I went on a deep dive into the whole subculture of the internet, of teardown engineers, and Monroe, which is a bunch of guys in Detroit, Charger Tech, because I'm an electronics nut too. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. And what I noticed and wrote about was not that, hey, 48 amps is a good charging. I wrote about how freaking happy these people. There's a guy who has a YouTube channel called State of Charge, a guy named Tom, I'm going to mispronounce his name, and a good guy in New Jersey, Malogany, I think. But anyway, all he does, he's an expert on all this, is he tests charging units with great joy. And you talk to these young engineers, great joy. They're all so happy to be solving really hard technical problems. Charging infrastructure, those fast chargers that don't work, there are a lot of big problems. So policy people, engineering people, it reminded me of the Apollo program when it was
Yeah.
really hard work and it was really exciting and technically stimulating. And people were so happy to be part of it, doing their best because they thought it had a purpose. It was, as McCain would say, something bigger than yourself, a cause greater than your own self-interest. And it's infectious because they're like, we're getting rid of, carbon emissions, which, sorry, half the Republican Party, but is a huge problem. And we're solving really hard technical problems. I mean, I met an engineer at SpaceX, one of the top engineers there. Had worked a little bit on the cars and was doing space stuff. And he said, yeah, my old job was Lockheed Missiles in space and very high tech. And I was proud to be part of the defense thing. And I don't vilify anybody, but 10 years of designing ways to put a nuclear weapon through a window better. It's relieving now to be doing space exploration. I did my time at that. And this fills my heart with joy in a way that designing weapons of mass destruction really didn't. So anyway, point being, there's infectious happiness in big technological causes like this. I'm sure the early days of aviation were the same. The early days of computer science, silicon chips. We've had a lot of these revolutions. But anyway, I wrote about how
I think some of it, Mike,
happy
and
people seem
I
to be.
completely agree with you that there is something about these being summoned, to go to the moon or
Right,
whatever.
exactly.
But I also think some of it is simply that it's not politics. So,
Yeah,
like, I've been watching my Baltimore Orioles for the first time in a long time are playing with verve and passion and inspiration, and it's a young team that you want to root for.
right.
And my son, my 12-year-old, is really into watching these YouTube videos, and some of them are really great. There's a guy who does, I'm trying to think, he has a thing called game theory and fashion theory, and just a young guy who's happy and does these, I would say, fairly wholesome videos that actually teach people things.
Wow.
And, I'm a big fan. I try to listen to Dana Carvey and David Spade's
Yeah, that's a
podcast
good
about
podcast. Yeah.
SNL. So we need more things in our lives that are not politics.
Well, and not zero sum. I'm right, you're evil.
Yes.
The big problem that people get excited about is how do you pump, 350 kilowatts to a charging hose and keep it cool enough the thing doesn't melt. I mean, you're up against physics, not another American. And I think you're totally right. And the joy is infectious. So I don't know. It's weird. I bought a strange looking BMW electric car, an iX, but technically it's great. And the damn thing makes me happy. And I like being part of. I mean, I'm literally doing the thing where I pay the extra nickel for solar power. And I am a right wing nut. I scoffed at Jimmy Carter's old windmills outside of Palm Springs way before wind power made any sense. I'm a nut for nuclear. I want to build the smaller nuclear reactors all over the country. But I just causes for technical innovation that's great for the planet create happiness. And we know we have this $1 billion happiness industry. Hell, I'm in LA. I'm walking distance to probably 5 different gurus and soothsayers. My suggestion is find a cause for the planet, for mankind, for kids who don't have enough to eat, for something, for electric cars, whatever it may be, clean energy. It'll make you happy, and you don't have to pay a guru.
And I think there's that guru thing on the left, and then on the right, there's I don't want to say everything that Jordan Peterson does is bad, but I'm sure some of it's good. But there's these young men who are very hungry for mentorship, and
they want to join something, and we got to co-opt the guys who were taking out the 1930s playbook of, hey, we'll give you a brown shirt and let you march, and you're all together. We're even going to have armbands, because that is a corruption of that energy. But you got to use the energy. You got to
as William Shatner said on SNL. Remember, there was a skit where all these Trekkies were asking questions about episode 7, and he said, "Go outside, kiss a girl."
Right, exactly.
I would say get a hobby, get an electric car, follow the Orioles, whatever it is.
Go to engineering school, build something useful. We need more engineers. Well, and we need good podcasts. Thank you for doing one. We need good books, so go out and sell 1 million of them. And
thank you. And I can't tell you, what a pleasure it is being the one asking the questions rather than answering them. Because even though you haven't seen any of my interviews yet, I've been taping them all week, banking them. It's sort of like banking early votes to be released next week. So it's great to be on the side of the table asking the questions. And it's also great to talk to someone about fun, happy things that are inspiring and artistic and creative. Thank you, Mike Murphy.
Well, thank you, my friend, and good luck with the book. It was a pleasure to be here, and you like not having to ask the questions, and I like bloviating endlessly. So we found the perfect way to spend an hour.
And also, let me publicly thank you for tweeting about the
sure.
book.
Yeah, absolutely. That. My pleasure. It's a good book.
Thanks, Mike.
All right. See you later, pal.